So welcome to our new Rare Books and Manuscripts gallery. This is a newly dedicated space for our book collection. And today we're going to look at some of the manuscripts that were brought in recently into the collection to sort of expand the stories that we can tell and bring new voices into the collection. I'm Dr. Lindley Ann Herbert. I'm the Robert and Nancy Hall Curator of Rare Books and Manuscripts at the Walters Art Museum. So one of the biggest challenges we've had since I've been at the museum is that there was no effective way to integrate rare books and manuscripts into the medieval galleries. There was no specific space set aside for that, and it's really such an important component to medieval life that it felt really important to find a way to bring them in more fully and not just have a few scattered manuscripts throughout the galleries. So in thinking about a really wonderful first installation to kind of inaugurate that gallery, it occurred to me that we actually have a lot of recently acquired manuscripts, printed books, leaves that nobody has seen yet. So we've been acquiring things that allowed us to bring new voices and new perspectives, different cultures, different religions into the collection that really weren't well represented or represented at all before. So in acquiring these works over the past few years, we've been able to sort of build out new narratives in the collection in a way that expands what we can do in the galleries. So this strategy is something that we are doing across all collection areas, but we thought it'd be a really wonderful opportunity to show how we are doing this within the book collection in this exhibition. Often when we acquire a new object, the public doesn't really hear about the strategy behind it. And so putting this information into the labels actually allows us to pull back the veil on our work a bit and sort of talk about, in a more open way, how we are growing the collection. So the books and leaves that you'll see in this exhibition are pulled together a little bit differently than a normal exhibition, which has an overall theme that they all feed into. Really, these works are diverse intentionally across time period, place, culture, religion, because it is meant to show the different directions in which the collection has been growing. So the central case in the room, which you'll note is fairly low, so small people can look well into the case, is dedicated to books that we've recently acquired that were actually used by children. And so the books in that case, there are two of them sort of back to back, and one of those was used by a 12-year-old prince in Romania in the 16th century. And the other one was used in the Netherlands in the 19th century by a young man named Karl, who was deaf and who was using this book for his own confession. We recently received a fantastic gift of Ethiopian manuscripts and scrolls. And so several of those are on view in one case. But what is really special about the Ethiopian tradition is that it is a living tradition. So there are still people making manuscripts today in Ethiopia in a way that you really don't find in other parts of the world. And two of the most interesting ones in that case actually are, there's a large service book that was used during the Mass, and it has a musical notation in it called meleket that is unique to Ethiopia. And it's a mnemonic device, so it's tiny characters that will remind the priest of the music that goes with the text. Another wonderful piece in that case that I want people to note is that there's a scroll in the case that's still rolled up, and we actually have not taken it out of its case yet because it's so tightly in there. But it was meant to be worn probably on the body as a protective device. These scrolls were commissioned by someone who had a special need, and so they would have a scroll inscribed with prayers, and the entire scroll was the length of their body so that they would be covered in prayers from head to toe. And then this would be tightly rolled up and put into a case for them to either wear or to hang over their bed, for instance. And one area of the collection that we have that's actually small but mighty is our collection of Judaica. We recently acquired two Haggadah. These are the texts that's used for Passover. They're read at Passover. Another case actually allows people to understand more about manuscripts that were created in the era of print. A lot of people have the misconception that when the printing press was introduced to Europe, in 1455 by Gutenberg, that manuscripts were no longer created. And that's actually really not true. The first book in this case is a printed book from the 1600s that was a treatise that was written about the use of pigments to create flowers in the margins of manuscripts. It also has a second treatise bound with it that talks about the sort of secret symbolism of color in books, including for things like heraldry. And then we have a book that was originally a fully printed book with no imagery at all in it. It was intentionally sort of simple, and about 10 years after it was first made, a Lutheran family, had illuminations created for the book. And so there's over 40 illuminations throughout the book. So this book has no real parallel out in the world, and it felt like a really wonderful book that we should preserve here at the Walters. And then we have a wonderful book called A Liber Amicorum, which is translated as a friendship book. And these books were made to sort of document your friend network, something like Facebook today. But these really are sort of the foundation for our modern yearbooks. And this one in particular was made by a young man who was away at school. And he passed it around to his friends, and they put their heraldry and sort of little kind inscriptions for him throughout the book. So it's a wonderful sort of document of friendship. And then our largest case was one of the most challenging but also really fun ones to put together. So we have a sacramentary that was very important because it was used to crown kings in Reims Cathedral in the 12th century. And when Henry Walters acquired this book in the early 1900s, what he bought was really just sort of the middle section of the book. And then in 1950, Dorothy Miner discovered the majority of those leaves, which were thought to have been thrown away. And so she repurchased them for the collection and was able to sort of reunite those with the book, but there were still several missing. And we were assuming that they were long gone until 2019 when they came on the market and they had been in a private collection. We have the main core book, and then the two different groups of leaves are on view for the first time all together. So we hope you will visit our New on the Bookshelf Expanded Narratives exhibition, which is open through December 2023. And then in December, we are installing another iteration of this idea that will celebrate women as creators.